So it's a really hard thing to cover. So well, basically what I will be discussing instead for this part will be this from now until 2, we'll be discussing the normal chest X-ray, basic anatomy, and how you relate that to the chest X-ray. How you read your normal chest X-ray, and I'll be talking a bit about the template that we use. I'll be talking about radiologic signs of chest diseases in the next lecture. Okay, anatomy. So, when you talk about anatomy, basic lungs, heart, trachea, hemidiaphragms, stomach, clavicles. But it's more complicated than that. Like for example here, when I localize my lesion in the chest X-ray, I would like to be as specific as possible. I would like to say right upper lobe, if I can say apical segment of the right upper lobe, I will say it. If I can say medial segment of the middle lobe, I will say it. If I can, I just leave it middle lobe. But the thing is, if you can be as specific as you can, that will really help with the quality of your reading. So how do you tell? Each lobe will have, or pathologies in each lobe will have different manifestations on your chest X-ray. Like for example, here, this is the involvement of the posterior segment, so lateral view, AP view. If you have a lesion or consolidation in the posterior segment of the upper lobe, this is how it's going to look like on the AP view. And if it's in the apical segment, so this is how it's going to look like in the lateral view, and here in the AP view. Anterior segment, so on and so forth. So basically, what you have to do here is you just have to remember, if you have to go back to your basic anatomy with regards to the lobar segments of the lungs. So you have just to remember, you have right upper lobe, middle lobe, and lower lobe. And for the left, you have your upper lobe and your lower lobe. The lingula is part of the upper lobe, but for memorization purposes and for practical purposes, I just treat it as a separate lobe, and I equate it to the middle lobe in the right. But that's just for memorization purposes, because for true anatomic purposes, it's still part of the left upper lobe. So for the right upper lobe, we have your apical, anterior, and posterior segments. For the left upper lobe, we have your anterior, so it equates well with the right. But instead of having an apical and posterior, it has an apico-posterior segment. So what happened is these two merged in the left. And then like I was saying, for memorization purposes, for the middle lobe with the right, so this is the middle lobe. This is the medial segment on the AP view, medial segment on the lateral view, the lateral segment of the middle lobe on the AP view, and this is how it appears in the lateral view. You just equate that with the lingula, which instead of having, for the middle lobe, it's medial and lateral. For the lingula, it's superior and inferior segments. And then, what is confusing here is that the lower lobe has a superior segment, which on your AP view is superimposed on the middle lobe. So this is where the superior segment of the lower lobe is. The lateral view you will see. So ito yung major fissure. Major fissure, you have your upper lobe, you have your middle lobe. Here you have the superior segment of the lower lobe. It is superimposed on the upper and middle lobes in the AP view. It's the same thing for the left. And here we have the basal segments of the right lower and the left lower lobes. Okay, so how do we interpret the anatomy of your chest X-ray? In the PA view, we look at the right border first. So for the right border, that's made up of your superior vena cava. And inferiorly, the other part of the border is made up of your right atrium. You may or may not see the inferior vena cava. It may make an additional line there, inferiorly. Okay, for the left border, that part is the arch of the aorta, or what we call the aortic knob. You may or may not see the main pulmonary trunk. And the third part is made up of your left ventricle. These are your pulmonary arteries, right and left. And here down, so your pulmonary arteries will drain into the left atrium. Your pulmonary vein, so there we have your trachea. Your pulmonary arteries will drain into the, your pulmonary arteries will drain into the right atrium. Your pulmonary veins will drain into your left atrium. So ito yung pulmonary veins, slightly more inferior, and we have your left atrium there. So on the PA view, again, just to reinforce, and now we're going to follow the flow of blood. We have your superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, draining into the right atrium. And then from there it goes to the right ventricle. Right ventricle goes out to the pulmonary arteries. Pulmonary arteries bring blood to the lungs. The blood gets oxygenated. It goes back, pulmonary veins into the left atrium. And then from there to the left ventricle. Blood goes out the aorta. So basically, that's it. Lateral view. Right atrium, SVC, IVC, right atrium. Right ventricle. Take note, we'll go back here lang kasi this one is a board exam question eh. Which of the four heart chambers does not form a border on the chest X-ray? Right ventricle. Your left atrium may form a border, but the right ventricle does not form a border. So it only forms a border in the lateral view. It forms the anterior border. So here again, sige. Right atrium, boom, there we have your right ventricle. Right ventricle, pulmonary arteries. The problem with the pulmonary arteries, particularly in pediatric patients, because your vessels are thin and fast, if you are not experienced, you may mistake them for pulmonary hilar lymphadenopathy. So that is one technical difficulty with regards to pediatric patients. So pulmonary arteries, your pulmonary veins are more inferior. There you have your left atrium. And there you have your left ventricle. So your left ventricle is more posterior. Later on, just remember this basically because we will be going back to this. Ako ba yung mag-lecture sa cardiac? I-check ko lang muna. Kasi if I will be the one lecturing on cardiac radio, we will be going back to this and we will be reviewing that. So that you can learn to determine which chambers are enlarged based on the chest X-ray. For now, I'll just relate it to that also. So if you see your Okay, remember this part. You will see that you have your left atrium here. and you will see that your trachea and your main stem bronchi rest on the right atrium, left atrium. So if you have left atrial enlargement, you will have widening of the carinal angle. Yung angle nun is less than 90 degrees. It's going to be more than 90 degrees. It's going to split. So that is what we call widening the carinal angle. That is already indicative of left atrial enlargement. Now, your right atrium, it forms the right border of the heart. So if you have enlargement of the right atrium, it goes here. So your right border becomes prominent. So right atrial enlargement is relatively easy to see. Right ventricle. Right ventricular enlargement is harder to see because you cannot, because it does not form a border in the PA view. But what happens is, if it's there and it enlarges, in the PA view, it's going to push the cardiac apex laterally and slightly superiorly. So we have what we call, it's not an official term, but we call it the perky breast. Because nagsa-stand out yung right atrium. If you remember yung appearance ng TOF sa tetralogy of Fallot, you have what we call a boot, di ba, yung boot-shaped appearance of the heart. The boot stands out, so para siyang perky breast. As compared to the, let's say, with regards naman doon sa left ventricular enlargement, when it enlarges, it will go down here. Your cardiac apex will become prominent, it will enlarge there. Left ventricular enlargement is a sagging breast. Right ventricular is a perky breast. But this is just an indirect sign. The direct sign can be seen more in the lateral view. Sa lateral view, RA, RV, you will see that you have a space here. So if you have retrosternal fullness, that means your right ventricle is enlarged. And here, left atrium, if it enlarges, it will, diba, I was saying kanina on the AP view, it's going to split it's going to cause widening of the carinal angle. On the lateral view, it's going to push your bronchi posteriorly. And your left ventricle naman, since it's more posterior, in the lateral view, it's going to fill up the retrocardiac space. So yeah. Okay, border again, just for reinforcement, you have your left atrium, you have your left ventricle. Anterior border, that's the right ventricle, and then there you have your aorta. Your pulmonary arteries, left and right. Again, when you look at your pulmonary arteries, point of confusion, again, especially in pediatric patients, is they can be mistaken for pulmonary higher lymphadenopathies. So in this particular case, it takes some practice. Okay, so how do we look at the chest X-ray? So before you read the chest X-ray, you look at the technical factors first, whether the X-ray is good. So you look at position. By position, how was the X-ray taken? Inspiratory effort, exposure, and obliquity, I'll be talking about that later. So most commonly, what we have is the posterior anterior view. So sa posterior anterior, you're standing, X-ray beam comes from there, your plate is here, nakaganito ka. Your hands are in this position because it will help wing out the scapulae and it will also expand your chest. So this is the ideal view for the chest X-ray. But unfortunately, not all patients can tolerate this position. Siyempre, may mga toxic patients ka, pediatric patients, na hindi mo ma-instruct. So PA view is usually only for adults who can or young children who can understand the instructions or who can tolerate the position. If your patient is bedridden, you have no choice but to take the X-ray with the patient on the bed. So this is how that's why we have the AP view. The problem with the AP view is you can have pseudo magnification of the heart. The heart will appear enlarged and you usually have suboptimal inspiration. Okay, the next view is what we call the apicolordotic view. Why do we do the apicolordotic views? Because sometimes the PA view, and if you would want to look at the lung apices, you have your clavicles here, and you have your first rib going there. So sometimes if you have TB, there may be opacities which are superimposed on the osseous structures. You do your apicolordotic view to get those osseous structures out of the way. So, doon sa mga yearly exams nyo, ilan na sa inyo dito na pag pina-repeat yung X-ray with an apicolordotic view? Yeah, because that's because of the your osseous structures can obscure the findings, which is why an apicolordotic view is requested. Inspiratory effort. For inspiratory effort, what we do is we count the posterior ribs. Ideally, you should be able to see 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you only see 8 before the diaphragm, that means the X-ray was taken with poor inspiratory effort. The problem with that is you can have magnification. Again, you can have magnification of the heart. You will think that the patient has cardiomegaly, but in reality, it's just poor inspiratory effort. And here, exposure. Exposure refers to how your chest X-ray will look like. Because what they do is they will give depending on the habitus of the patient, the tech will give a certain amount of standard energy through the tube. And if the energy is higher than usual, it will make the image black. If the energy is lower than usual, then the beams will not adequately penetrate. So it's going to appear more white. So this is what we call underexposure. This is what we call overexposure. Over and underexposure, they also have its uses. For example, here, for ideal exposure, you can get a good look of the lung parenchyma. But if you want to assess the osseous structures, it's better to overexpose so that you can get a better look at the bones. And then next is obliquity. With obliquity kasi sometimes let's say your patient is poorly positioned or your patient has scoliosis, the patient is rotated to the side. This will again distort your anatomy. You would think the trachea is deviated when in fact it's not. You would think the heart is enlarged when in fact it's not. So, as long as you're aware that there is obliquity, you can put qualifications in your readings. So again, position. So we have a chest X-ray taken in the PA view with good inspiratory effort, good exposure, with no obliquity. Or we have a chest X-ray taken in the AP view with poor inspiratory effort, with obliquity, and with poor exposure. So basically that's it. Now, you already look at the X-ray. How are you going to describe your findings? So my template focuses on the lungs, because this is a chest X-ray. So I would like to start with what is most important. I talk about the lungs. And then I look at the heart. And then I look at the midline structures. And then I go down to the costophrenic angles and epidiaphragms. And then to be sure that it's complete, I look at the osseous structures and soft tissues. So templates will differ from doctor to doctor, from institution to institution. But the thing is, the take-home message here is you have to be thorough because you're responsible for every inch of the chest X-ray. So I look at the lungs first. There are no active lung infiltrates, or the lungs are clear. And then I look at the pulmonary vessels. Pulmonary vasculature is unremarkable. There's no pulmonary congestion. Is the heart enlarged? The heart is not enlarged. And then, yeah. The trachea is midline, or the trachea could be deviated because you have a mediastinal mass. Costophrenic angles in hemidiaphragms are intact. They could be obscured because of pleural effusion, which is why you have to mention that. And then you look at your osseous structures. Are there any fractures? Because you can look at the ribs, you might be able to miss fractures, clavicular fractures, and so on and so forth. Are there metastases? So these are the things that you look for. And interestingly enough, for some patients, particularly females, don't forget to look at the breasts. Kasi hindi mo alam yung patient mo status post-mastectomy na pala. So that's why it can be missed if you are not yet experienced. So, when I say the lungs are clear, pulmonary vasculature is unremarkable, heart is not enlarged, trachea is midline. Some radiologists are more, they give shorter templates. But for beginners, I think a longer template is better because it will force you to look at all these structures. Para ka may checklist eh. The lungs, check. Look at the lungs, vasculature, check. Heart, check. And so on, to make sure that you don't miss anything. So you become more experienced, you can shorten it down. You can shorten your template down to what needs to be done. Other radiologists have different templates, so they can go like they go midline first and they go out. Some would prefer to start with the aorta, the heart, and then go to the lungs. But me personally, I go to what I think is most important first, or to what clinical finding is most important first, because these are the things that I must communicate to the clinician. Okay, so basically that's it. The next part, I will be discussing this next week.